This is the story of a man who had nothing, no money, no future, no hope, until he discovered one simple secret. He started waking up at 5 a.m. every single morning, and in just 90 days his entire life completely changed. What he did in those early morning hours will shock you, and it might just be the answer you have been searching for. In a small town where factories worked day and night, there lived a 32-year-old man named Thomas. Thomas worked as a night security guard at a big warehouse. Every evening at 8 p.m. he went to work. Every morning at 6 a.m., tired and exhausted, he went home to sleep. His salary was very small. It was barely enough to survive. He lived in a tiny one-room apartment above a closed-down shoe repair shop. The fan was broken. He slept on a mattress on the floor. There was only one light bulb, and it would flicker when the electricity was weak. His clothes were old. His shoes had holes in them, and every winter he stuffed newspaper inside them to keep the cold out. But Thomas suffered from something worse than being poor. He felt trapped. He felt stuck. Every morning, as he walked home past the sleeping town, he saw other people's lives through their windows. Families eating breakfast together. Children getting ready for school, their backpacks too big for their small shoulders. Men in clean shirts going to office jobs, sipping coffee from paper cups. And Thomas would think, will this be my life forever? Walking home while everyone else is waking up to live their dreams. There was one window he always slowed down to look at. A small house with yellow curtains, where every morning a father lifted his little daughter onto his shoulders before school. Thomas didn't know why, but that window hurt him the most. Maybe because he remembered being lifted onto his own father's shoulders once, a long time ago, before everything fell apart. Thomas's father had died when Thomas was just 14. A construction accident. One Tuesday his father went to work and he never came home. There was no insurance, no compensation, nothing but a funeral the family could barely afford. Thomas was the oldest son. He left school the following year to work in a textile factory, and he never went back. He used to be good at numbers. His teacher once said he had a mathematician's mind. But a mathematician's mind doesn't matter when there's no money for books and no time between shifts. He buried that part of himself the same week he buried his father, and he never let himself think about it again. Until now, he had tried to change his life. He had applied for better jobs, but he only finished high school, so every door was closed to him. He wanted to learn new skills, but after working all night, he was too tired to do anything except sleep. His mother lived in the countryside. She would call him once every week, always on Sunday evening, always at the same time, as if her whole week was built around that one phone call. "Thomas, my son, when will your life get better?" "I'm getting old. I want to see you succeed before I die." Thomas would try to sound happy. "Soon, Mama, soon. I'm working on it." But he was not working on it because he did not know how. After he hung up the phone, he would sit alone in the dark and feel like the biggest liar in the world, lying to the one person who had never once lied to him. The truth that hurt him the most was this: he was not lazy. He worked hard every night. He walked 4 miles on his rounds. He stayed alert. He did his duty. But hard work alone was not changing anything. He was working hard in a life that was going nowhere. And every morning when he fell into bed around 7 a.m. and slept until 4 p.m., he felt like he was living backwards. The world moved forward while he slept through it. One thought kept coming back to him like a whisper he could not ignore. There has to be another way. But what? One cold Tuesday morning in November, Thomas's phone rang just as he was leaving work. It was his sister. "Thomas, you need to come home now." Mama collapsed. "She is in the hospital." His heart stopped. The phone nearly slipped from his hand. He stood frozen on the sidewalk for a moment. The warehouse gate still open behind him. His mind suddenly empty of everything except one word: Mama. He took the first bus to his village. It was a 3-hour journey that felt like forever. He sat by the window, his forehead against the cold glass, watching the fields blur past, and for the first time in years he prayed. He didn't even know what he believed in anymore, but he prayed anyway. "Please, not yet. Please let her wait for me." An old woman across the aisle offered him a biscuit. He couldn't eat it. He just held it in his hand the whole ride, turning it over and over like a small stone he didn't know what to do with. When he arrived at the small village clinic, His mother was in bed, hooked to a thin tube of saline. She was weak but awake. The doctor said she had fainted from being too tired and too stressed. Years of working in the fields, years of worry, finally catching up to her body. She needed rest, better food, and medicine they could not afford. His mother held his hand. Her grip was weaker than he remembered. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Thomas, I do not have much time left. Please, my son, do not waste your life like I wasted mine. Find a way. Promise me." Her eyes searched his face the way they used to when he was a small boy who'd done something wrong. Except this time there was no anger in them, only a kind of pleading tenderness that broke him more than anger ever could. "Don't talk like that." "Mama," Thomas said, his voice cracking, "you are not wasting anything. You raised us." "You promise me?" she said again, tightening her grip with whatever strength she had left. "I promise," Thomas whispered. And in that moment, he meant it more than he had ever meant anything in his life. Thomas sat beside her bed long after she fell asleep. The fluorescent light buzzed above him. A nurse passed by twice and didn't say anything. He looked at his mother's wrinkled hands, hands that had worked in fields for decades, just like he worked through nights. Both of them struggling, but going nowhere. Something inside him broke, not with sadness, with anger at his own helplessness. He thought about his father's hands too, rough and calloused, lifting him onto his shoulders. 2 generations of hands that had worked themselves raw and had nothing to show for it. He did not want to be the 3rd generation. He stepped outside the clinic, into the darkness before dawn. It was 5 a.m. The village was still asleep, but a few farmers were already walking to their fields, lanterns swinging in their hands. Birds were beginning to sing, hesitant at first, then louder. The air was cool and fresh, smelling of wet earth. And in that moment, standing alone in the quiet dawn outside the clinic where his mother lay sleeping, Thomas made a decision. "No more," he whispered, his voice swallowed by the open field in front of him. "I will not live like this anymore. I do not care what it takes. I will find a way." He stayed 3 more days at the clinic until his mother was stable enough to be discharged into his sister's care. On the bus ride back to town, exhausted, his eyes burning from lack of sleep, Thomas noticed something. Sitting across from him was a man in his 50s. He was well dressed, in a simple but neatly pressed shirt. He was reading a book, and he looked peaceful in a way Thomas hadn't felt in years. Thomas recognized him, Mr. Chun, a successful businessman who owned several shops in town. What shocked Thomas was the time. It was 6 a.m., a successful man traveling on a regular bus at dawn. Thomas almost didn't say anything. He almost let the moment pass, the way he had let so many moments pass in his life. But he thought of his mother's hand gripping his, and something in him refused to stay silent this time. He gathered his courage. "Excuse me, sir? Why are you on this early bus?" Mr. Chun looked up and smiled, the kind of smile that comes easily to people who are at peace with their lives. "Because I wake up at 4:30 every morning. I use this time to read, think, and plan my day before the world wakes up. But do you not need sleep?" "I sleep at 9 p.m., 7.5 hours. "That is enough." Mr. Chun looked at Thomas's tired face, the dark circles under his eyes, the way his shoulders sagged like he was carrying something heavier than his backpack. "You work nights?" "Yes, security guard. And when do you sleep?" 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., usually. Mr. Chun nodded slowly, studying him. "So you are awake when the world sleeps, and asleep when the world works. No wonder you are stuck." He leaned forward, lowering his voice as if sharing something precious. "Young man, let me tell you a secret that changed my life 30 years ago. The hours between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., those are magic hours. That is when you can build the life you want while everyone else is still dreaming." Thomas felt something stir inside him, a dangerous thing called hope. He had felt hope before, and he had watched it die before, and some part of him was afraid to feel it again. But how? "I work until 6 a.m. I need sleep." "Then change your sleep. Sleep when you get home at 6:30, wake up at 11:30, that is 5 hours. Enough to survive. Then live your real life when the world is awake. And as you adjust, eventually wake at 5 a.m. always. That is the secret." Why are you telling me this? Thomas asked, almost suspicious, because nobody had offered him anything for free in a long time. Mr. Chun was quiet for a moment. Because 30 years ago I was exactly like you. Tired, stuck, angry at a life I didn't choose. Someone gave me 5 minutes on a bus once. I am only returning the favor. He wrote his phone number on a card and pressed it into Thomas's hand. If you are serious about changing your life, call me. I will show you what to do with those morning hours. But only if you are serious, because it requires discipline most people do not have. The bus reached Thomas's stop. He looked at the card in his hand, the ink already smudging slightly from his sweaty palm, and made a promise to himself. I will do it starting tomorrow. That evening, lying on his thin mattress, staring at the flickering bulb, Thomas almost talked himself out of it. Who was he kidding? He was 32 years old. He had no education, no connections, no energy left after a lifetime of exhaustion. What if he called and it led nowhere, just like everything else? But then he thought of his mother's hand in his, her whisper, "Promise me." And he picked up his phone before he could change his mind again. He called Mr. Chun the next day at 11 a.m. For the first time in years, Thomas was awake during daylight on a weekday. The sunlight felt strange on his skin, almost foreign, like he was a stranger visiting someone else's life. He met Mr. Chun at a small cafe. Mr. Chun looked at him with approval. You actually changed your sleep schedule. Good. Most people talk. You acted. Now I will teach you what to do with your mornings. He took out a notebook and drew a simple picture. Thomas, imagine your life as a house. Right now, your house is dark, cold, and falling apart. Why? Because you never work on the foundation. You are too busy surviving. He drew a simple house. The hours from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. That is your foundation building time. While everyone else is asleep or just waking up, you are building the future. 2 hours every morning. That is 14 hours per week, 60 hours per month, 730 hours per year. He wrote the numbers clearly, underlining them twice. That is the same as 9 full workdays just from waking up early. In 1 year you get 3 extra months that everyone else wastes. Thomas's eyes went wide. 3 months. Here is what you do with those 2 hours, Mr. Chun continued. This is not negotiable. This is the system. Hour 1, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. Build skills. You spend this hour learning something that will change your money situation. Not watching TV, not scrolling your phone. Learning a skill, a language, a trade. Online courses are free now. YouTube has everything. You have no excuse. Hour 2, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Build body and mind. 30 minutes exercise, walk, run, stretch. Your body is your vehicle. If it breaks down, you have nothing. Then read, Plan Your Day, or use what you learned in Hour 1. Thomas wrote quickly in a borrowed notebook, his handwriting messy from years of not practicing it. Mr. Chun added 3 rules. Rule 1, no negotiation. You wake at 5 a.m. every single day, including weekends. No, just today I will skip. That is how you fail. Rule 2, sleep by 9 p.m. You cannot cheat sleep and succeed. Your body needs rest, but you control when you rest. Rule 3, the first week will be hell. Your body will hate you. Your mind will create excuses. Push through. After 21 days, it becomes normal. After 90 days, it becomes who you are. Mr. Chun looked at Thomas seriously. I am giving you 3 months. 3 months of waking at 5 a.m. Building skills in Hour 1. Building yourself in Hour 2. After 3 months, come back to me. Show me what you have built. If you have actually done the work, I will help you find a better job. If you quit, do not bother calling. Success goes to people who show up when it is hard. Thomas felt the weight of the challenge, but also, for the first time in years, he felt something else. Purpose. I will do it, he said. I will not quit. We will see, Mr. Chun said with a knowing smile. Everyone says that. The next morning, Thomas's alarm screamed at 5 a.m. His entire body protested. Every muscle ached with a deep bone-level exhaustion that begged him to stay still. His mind whispered, just 1 more hour. You are so tired. But he remembered his mother's face in the hospital bed, Mr. Chun's challenge, his own promise. He threw off the blanket and stood up, swaying slightly in the dark, before steadying himself against the cold wall. The first week was pain. Thomas dragged himself awake each morning. His body was aching from lack of sleep, his eyes red and stinging. At 5 a.m., while it was still dark, he sat at a small table with his phone, the screen brightness hurting his eyes. He watched free Excel tutorials on YouTube. His mind wandered constantly. To his bed, to his mother, to the warm weight of sleep he was denying himself. But he did not stop. At 6 a.m., he forced himself to walk around his neighborhood for 30 minutes, his legs heavy, his breath visible in the cold morning air. Then he read articles about accounting. He had chosen this skill because every business needed it, and because somewhere deep down, the old memory of being good with numbers had quietly resurfaced. By 7:30 a.m., he went to bed and slept until 2 p.m. He got ready for his night shift at 3 p.m. The cycle repeated. It was exhausting. It was lonely. Nobody understood why he was doing this. On the 11th night, everything nearly fell apart. Thomas was standing at the warehouse gate, half asleep on his feet, when his co-worker Danielle walked past and laughed. "What's wrong with you lately? You look like a ghost." "Sleeping 5 hours and waking up at dawn to watch videos. For what?" "You'll still be standing here next year, brother. We all will." He didn't say it cruelly, just tiredly, the way men say true things to each other when they've both given up believing things can change. But the words landed like a punch. That night, after his shift, Thomas sat on the edge of his mattress at 5 a.m., laptop open, eyes burning, and for the first time he didn't move. He just sat there, staring at the wall, the weight of Danielle's words pressing down on him, along with 11 days of exhaustion. Maybe Danielle was right. Maybe this was foolish. Maybe men like him didn't get to change their lives. They just survived them. Tears came before he expected them to, quiet and humiliating, the kind of crying a grown man does alone in the dark when he thinks no one will ever know. He thought about turning off the alarm for the next morning, just for one day, just to rest. Then his phone buzzed. It was a text from his sister, a photo of their mother sitting up in a chair outside the village house, smiling weakly at the camera, a cup of tea in her hands. The caption read, "She asked about you today. She said, 'Tell Thomas I am proud he is trying.'" Thomas stared at the photo for a long time. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, opened his notebook, and kept working. He did not turn off the alarm. Something changed around day 20. One morning, Thomas woke up at 4:58 a.m., 2 minutes before his alarm. His body had adapted, and for the first time he did not feel anger. He felt readiness. The Excel tutorial started making sense. He was learning formulas, data analysis, and basic accounting. He completed his first online certificate and sat alone in his small apartment holding his phone, looking at the little digital certificate with his name on it, feeling a kind of pride he hadn't felt since he was a schoolboy. His morning walks became something he looked forward to, the sunrise spilling orange over the rooftops, the quiet streets, the feeling that while everyone else was sleeping, he was building. By the end of month 2, Thomas had completed 3 online courses in accounting and Excel. He had lost weight from daily walking. His mind felt sharper. His confidence grew, slowly, the way a small flame grows once it finally catches. People at work noticed. "Thomas, you look different, healthier." "What changed?" He smiled. "I am changing my life 2 hours at a time." Even Danielle stopped laughing. One night he simply asked, quietly, almost embarrassed, "Hey, that Excel thing. Could you maybe show me sometime?" Thomas felt something shift between them. The way it shifts when one person decides to stop sinking, and the people around them start to wonder if maybe they could rise too. His Sunday calls with his mother changed too. Instead of empty promises, he had real things to tell her now. "Mama, I finished a course this week." "Mama, I learned how to organize numbers in a spreadsheet." She didn't fully understand what any of it meant, but she didn't need to. She just said, every time, in a voice that sounded a little stronger each week, "I am proud of you, my son. Keep going." And those 4 words carried him through mornings when nothing else could have. In the 3rd month, Thomas used what he learned. He created a simple Excel spreadsheet to organize the warehouse inventory. It was something his company had never done properly. He showed it to his supervisor, nervous, half expecting to be dismissed the way he always had been. The supervisor scrolled through it slowly, then looked up, genuinely impressed. "Thomas, how did you learn this?" "I wake up at 5 a.m. and teach myself." Word reached the warehouse manager, then the owner. On day 87 of Thomas's 5 a.m. journey, his supervisor called him into the office. Thomas walked in already preparing himself for disappointment. Old habits die hard. "Thomas, we are expanding our accounting department. We need someone who understands our warehouse operations and has basic bookkeeping skills. The job is yours if you want it. Day shift, double your current salary." Thomas stood there, unable to speak. His ears were ringing. 3 months ago, he was a hopeless night guard walking past windows full of other people's lives. Now he was being offered an office job, in daylight, among the people whose lives he used to envy through glass. "When do I start?" he managed to say, his voice unsteady. "Next Monday." That evening, Thomas walked outside, sat on the broken step in front of his building, and called Mr. Chun before he even called his sister. "Mr. Chun, I did it. I never missed a single 5 a.m. wake-up, and today I got promoted." There was a pause, then Mr. Chun's voice, proud and warm. "I knew you would. You had the look of someone ready to change. Now remember, do not stop waking at 5 a.m. That is not a strategy. That is your life now. I will not stop. This is who I am now." The first thing Thomas did with his new salary was send money home for his mother's proper medical checkup. The second thing he did, 3 months later, once he had saved enough, was take a bus back to the village, this time not to a hospital, but to bring her home with him. He still remembers the moment she stepped off the bus in town, looking around at the buildings, confused, asking, "Why are we here, Thomas?" And he simply took her hand and walked her to the small 2-bedroom apartment he had rented, with real furniture and a working fan and sunlight coming through clean windows. When she understood that this was her new home, that her son had built this with his own 2 hands and his own stubborn mornings, she didn't say anything for a long moment. She just held his face in her hands the way she used to when he was small, and cried and said, "Your father would be so proud of you." It was the first time in 18 years anyone had said those words to him, and Thomas allowed himself finally to cry too, not from exhaustion this time, but from something that finally felt like peace. 1 year later, Thomas had become the company's lead accountant. He had saved enough money to give his mother proper medical care, ongoing, without fear of the next emergency. He kept the rented 2-bedroom apartment, now filled with small comforts they never used to have. A working fan, fresh curtains his mother sewed herself, a kitchen that always smelled like her cooking. Every morning at 5 a.m. he still woke up, not because he had to, but because those 2 hours were sacred. That was when he learned new software, read business books, planned his future. His co-workers would ask, "Thomas, why do you wake up so early?" "You have already succeeded," he would smile and say. "Success is not a destination. It is a daily practice. And mine begins at 500 a.m. My friend, Thomas's story is proof of something powerful. Your life can change. Not someday. Not when things get better. Right now, starting tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., here is what most people do not understand. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is not talent. It is not luck. It is not even hard work. It is how you use the time when everyone else is sleeping. Between 5 and 7 a.m., the world is quiet. No notifications, no meetings, no distractions. Your willpower is at its peak. Your mind is fresh. This is when you do the work that changes your path. Successful people know this. That is why CEOs, athletes, and leaders wake up early. Not because they are superhuman, because they understand that winning the morning means winning the day. So here is your challenge. The same challenge Mr. Chun gave Thomas. Step 1. Tonight, set your alarm for 5 a.m., not 5:15, not 5:30, exactly 5 a.m., and put your phone across the room so you have to stand up to turn it off. Step 2. Decide what you will build in your first hour, a skill you need, a business idea, a certification course. Choose one thing, just one, and commit to it for 90 days. Step 3. Protect your 9 p.m. bedtime. You cannot wake up early if you sleep late. Cut the Netflix. Skip the endless scrolling. Sleep is not your enemy. Wasted evenings are, I promise you this. If you wake up at 5 a.m. every single day for 90 days and use those 2 hours with purpose, your life will not look the same. Maybe you will not become a millionaire. Maybe you will not get promoted immediately, but you will become someone different, stronger, more disciplined, more capable. And that person can achieve anything. Thomas had nothing. No degree, no connections, no money, a dead father, a dying mother, and a co-worker who laughed at him in the dark. Just a choice to wake up early and build, even when no one believed it would matter. You have more than he had. The only question is, will you use it? Or will you hit snooze tomorrow and wonder 5 years from now why nothing changed? Remember Thomas's words, success is not a destination. It is a daily practice. And that practice begins tomorrow at 5 a.m. Will you be awake? Your future self is waiting on the other side of that alarm clock. Do not make them wait. Like and subscribe my channel.